All right, everybody, welcome. Welcome to a month of November for our Higher Healing group. And this is our monthly at the first Wednesday of every month where we gather together and we dive into some topics regarding our spiritual work, self-inquiry, personal development. What do we need in order to assist us in moving forward? Today, we have a very important topic. We're going to be discussing empathy, the power of empathy, the importance of empathy, and looking at not just in general empathy, but empathy for the self, which is where things should begin, things should start. So, how can we embody this self empathy? What's the importance of it? And how is it affecting us in the society as large when we are lacking that kind of self empathy? So, we're going to dive deep into those things and also do a meditation at the end of this to help us reach those roots and kind of help us support ourselves to see if we can shift this week and how we are managing our own self empathetically or not. Before I begin, we're going to start our introductions. My name is Geraldine Orozco. I am a CHT, NLP practitioner, and I'm here to assist you with DNA reprogramming and hypnotherapy. And you can find my work at geraldineorozco.com. And I'm going to pass it over to Rachel. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. Hello, everyone. I am Rachel Cooley, and my business is Divine Guidance with Rachel Cooley. And what I do is I bring the angelic realm to my clients, to my students, to help us with really self-compassion, with helping getting us through these intense times. And I also train women to work with the angels in my angel certification program. And I'm so happy to be here. And my website is right there below my name, rachelcooley.com. And I'm going to pass it along to Kathleen.
Greetings, everyone. How are you tonight? So happy to be with you, ladies, and the other healers that aren't here presently, but I know they're sending in their good energy in support of this great evening that we're going to be talking about. So I'm a business feng shui master, astrologer, and the creator of the Time Blazer, which is a time management system, but it's really looking at the yin and yang of business. And what I help my clients with is the metaphysical side of the energy behind your business and how you propel yourself forward. And so I look forward to talking a little bit about that. And from my realm tonight, I'm also an international bestseller, and I have my upcoming book, the 2022 Water Tiger, that should be out sometime around Thanksgiving. So I'll be very thankful that will be off my plate and into the hands of my readers. And I am going to pass this now on to Joan.
Hi, my name is Joan Rose. I'm really glad to be here with all of you wonderful folks. I'm a writer, artist, and psychic healer. I also work with the angels, and I dowse with a pendulum. So I use it for clearing, healing, and attuning with higher levels. So just glad to be here. And I know we're going to hear some wonderful things about how to especially empathize with our own selves. So thank you. I'll pass it back to Geraldine.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody that joining us tonight on this amazing conversation. And let's just dive right in. We have a lot to kind of discuss, and let's go into the definition. And this is very much an open panel, so please feel free to just jump in whenever you feel that you want to share something. Just jump right in. What is empathy? Well, one of the things I think that empathy is actually one of the biggest things that are lacking in our society, and one of the things that cause the greatest amount of suffering. When we think about suffering, oftentimes we think about great disasters, great things that are happening, tremendous traumas, but this kind of trauma is actually that's occurring deeply, deeply in the subconscious mind, and it's actually happening momentarily from the moment we get up in the morning to the moment we go to sleep. And it begins in childhood when we are in our nucleus, in our families. And for example, a parent may perhaps say that we're not good enough or something is wrong about what we're doing. And immediately it begins to create this disconnect, this disassociation without our complete understanding of why a parent is feeling that way. And immediately in this moment of trauma, this is the trauma. And how do we define trauma? Is the emotion of the feeling of not being able to understand how to navigate an experience, feeling complete distress in a moment, overwhelm, not knowing how to operate or navigate an experience. So with that kind of trauma, we create these fragmentations. And the fragmentation is actually something that creates a tremendous disassociation from the true core self. And it begins to embody an identity that is created by the fragmented experience. So, for example, in this example, as the father saying something to us, it creates this completely new identity. And in order to not feel that pain, that rejection, that shame, and that guilt that's being caused by that feeling, immediately the child begins to overcompensate in order to never feel that shame and suffering again. And going into adulthood, it begins to create an entire personality around this one experience. But remember that, of course, we have very full, very busy lives. So we have a lot of these different experiences happening around us, not just from a father figure or a mother figure. So, what ends up happening as a child is that we end up creating all kinds of fragmentations that make up the personality that we have. And it's all in this defense mode of the true core self, and layers and layers of that programming by the time the child becomes an adult now has really stuffed down, really suppressed the pain and the suffering that was occurring from that traumatic experience. And now this propels, again, now this is how we have this contractual agreement, and we can talk deeper about that in a moment, but how we have this agreement to experience this with a parent now begins to become an identity. And oftentimes it's carried out into our parenting, into our children, and into our life, into our relationships, into a relationship with ourselves and others. So, how do we deal with this kind of trauma that begins at a very early age? A judgment, a disassociation, a fragmentation with the core self, in which we find a difficult time nurturing the part that was hurt, that was damaged at that early age, and support it. And every time that we are perhaps triggered by something externally, it doesn't have that painful reaction that comes out of having to be self-preserving, protecting, survival mode all the time. And so how does this affect us? Because some of us, we might think, I didn't really have a parent that did that, right? But in fact, this is something that is affecting us in such a subconscious level, and it's affecting the way we relate to one another. It's affecting the choices that we make in the world and how we are leading our societies, our cultures, our groups, our nucleuses together as a whole. We have become perhaps a society that is lacking that compassion. This is how we end up doing a lot of suffering to animals, suffering to, different cultures. We have racism, we have separation, we have a lot of things that are disconnecting us from the unity of being able to become one. So how can we navigate this? I'll start right there. Anybody want to jump in?
I'll just say something very short. I first ran across this term self-empathy as a tool in nonviolent communication. And it's like when you're in a difficult conversation with another human being, the first thing most of us do is attack, right? That in kind of being retrained in nonviolent communication, one of the first tools you do before you even initiate the conversation is you have empathy for yourself. And when our facilitator used that term, I was kind of blown away by it, because I feel like I have empathy for a lot of other people, but I don't have as much empathy for myself. I just felt like, it was kind of when I learned about like self-care, like you're supposed to take care of yourself first. And it was this whole thing about, you're supposed to have empathy for yourself that is struggling to communicate and having a difficult time, So that's where, for me, that's where how I relate to that term, self-empathy. And just the idea that to have love and compassion and to understand yourself. It's kind of like your soul self has to talk to the other various parts of your being and explain, you're going through a hard time right now. Why don't you relax? Why don't you step back? Why don't you take care of yourself for a while and stop trying to take care of everyone else? It doesn't work anyway when you try to do that. So anyway, I just really love that term, self-empathy. I think it's a great place to start when we're having difficulties. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And some notes that I was writing about precisely this topic is, what choices are we making that cause suffering to others? So this is a really important question that we need to ask when we're interacting with one another. How are our choices to act, to speak, to behave affecting those around us, and being mindful of that? And when we don't have empathy and compassion for another person, it's because we feel that we cannot relate to their situation. We cannot relate to what they have gone through their suffering. And so one tool that can be very powerful in this process of being able to meet someone at where they're at is by bringing yourself into understanding their place, and sometimes we need to force ourselves outside of our box to be able to fit in those shoes in that experience and to see how is their experience different from mine, and being able to look at that. And that can be very difficult because the ego wants to not go into those vulnerable places, because in that place that we don't want to touch, that we don't want to see, is usually pain that we ourselves have not met yet. And that's why it's so difficult to relate to that empathetically.
If I could add on, actually, I'm going to start with what Joan said about being self-empathetic and self-care. When you really look at that as part of your self-care, that actually, I'll have to say, Joan, is a light bulb moment for me, because, when I think about, arguments or discretions or anything that I can say that happened in my life, the cleanup of reaction took a lot more effort than if I would have just gone, okay, step back. What's really going on here? Is this something that I am responsible for? Is this something that maybe I'm projecting in the other person and it's bringing out the icky stuff that was really a mirror of myself? What is it? So, really taking, because I do think we do live in a society of instant gratification and just gut reactions, multitasking, and it really gets us in this frenetic state of mind that we really, and I'm going to take the we out of it, that I will make maybe not the right decisions at the moment than if I would have just taken literally 20 seconds or a minute, just walk away and then come back and go, oh, okay, this is what I heard. Is that right? What are we going to do? Or, whatever, versus it, and it can happen instantaneously, even like when you're on the road. I have been seeing, I was kind of, more than holier than thou as I was driving down the road, singing to classic 60s music or whatever. And it was that day that was raining really hard for us in Northern California. I mean, it was coming down in buckets. And there were two people that were doing road rage between 3 and 4 lanes on 101. For those of you listening outside of our geographic area, that's a pretty big, motorway for us. And it was horribly busy because of the rain and all of that. And I found myself just like, whoa, and just really like yelling at these people like they even heard me at 70 miles an hour flying past me. But I don't know what was really going on there. Was somebody trying to get away from somebody? I don't know. I really don't know. But my instantaneous maybe flight or flight, I don't know what it was, but the first thing that came out of my mouth was I was raging at the road ragers. So, and sometimes it's appropriate. I think that's where I want to pass the mic to someone else. Sometimes it is appropriate to go, stop it, like just stop. But 99% of the time, when you think about, some of the things that you've gotten yourself into, or I've gotten myself into over my lifetime, it's like, maybe if I had done this, we would have had a different outcome. So taking responsibility for my own actions over the course of my life will, I think, also start a self-healing, which I also think is a part of self-care.
Right.
Absolutely. Joan, did you want to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with Kathleen.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And then that takes us to the next topic, right? Which is at that moment when you want to respond to something that's triggering, that is happening externally, this is where we need to look at ourselves from the process of identifying how are we similar in that suffering. Because a lot of times when people are acting out, there is suffering, there is pain there that is being expressed, even if it's in the most subtle ways. And the question is, what is happening, taking a look at the other person, yourself, and then what is the most compassionate reaction for yourself in that moment. One of the things that really helped my process in that is understanding what's actually happening to the physical body when we come into these moments of distress, right? And it's a series of chemical reactions that are actually happening. There's so much going on. It's not just a simple word or a feeling. When that happens, a lot of things are going out in the body. We have adrenaline rushing, endocrine in the system. The endocrine system becomes overactive, and we are really tuning into these chemicals that are causing over time inflammation in the body and over time stress, right? Stress and anxiety and illness. So this is where we need to take a really hard look at that. And when we start looking at epigenetics, for example, and how we are literally writing our genetic code as we are experiencing things, really, it is very important to note that, because as soon as you start having a reaction to something, you are telling the entire body, not just this moment, but every cell in the body is reacting to what is occurring. And these become habits. We might think, oh, it's just something that just happened in that moment, but these things are actually adding up. And it's usually things that have been deeply programmed as a child. So how can we support that inner child part of us that is still feeling that pain and that suffering from childhood? And this is where we talk about, reintegration of those fragments that are created, because the fragmentation is what creates a disconnect from the true core self. What is the true core self? Is it the one that's responding to these things, or is there something else in there? And a lot of times what we discover is that we are actually something completely different within that isn't necessarily reacting to the things that are occurring around us. So any comments on how can we identify and support the part of us that is in pain when we begin to identify pain externally?
Wow, I'm going to chime in now, Geraldine. Yeah, how do we identify when, like, are you going for like what part of us is in pain in a sense?
Yeah, in your opinion,
Yes.
please do share, like when,
Yes.
when we are needing to come into this empathy and this compassion, how can we support the parts of us that become triggered by what we're experiencing and therefore acting on the pain that is being triggered within us, oftentimes subconsciously?
Absolutely. Oftentimes self-consciously. Absolutely. And what I have found in my own life that I would love to share, and I learned this and it's helped me so much, and it's helped a number of my clients as well, is just noticing when we're triggered. Well, one, we just taking that pause. I mean, oftentimes we're triggered. It's hard. Sometimes we don't pause because we're just like triggered, right? But when we have the presence of mind to pause and identify what part of me is feeling triggered right now. Is this my adult self? Is this my adolescent self or my child self? I mean, I think that's really powerful to tune into that, identify it. And also, I like to let my own inner child know, I've got this. This is not your responsibility, and send my child to a beautiful place to play that I loved when I was a child, or to be with my grandma, when I was a child, then I'll handle this. And that tool has helped me tremendously in my life, so that my child is not in my adult self, because our child self is not meant to be in this adult role. And then this helps heal, I feel, the pain, for then you can process it as the adult and have that conversation, of course. And I love to call on the divine to help me to stay calm and focused and to have that compassionate conversation. Anyone else want to chime in?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say years ago, I don't remember when it was, but I think it was in the 70s when there was a lot of psychology around the inner child and the adult. And I forget what the third one was, that it is really funny usually when I'm triggered, it is often the child, it's kind of, and especially when I notice that I'm triggered about shame, I call them shame attacks. I'm like, I am in a shame attack. And so usually what I do is I call one of my sisters or a really close friend, and I let them know what's going on. I'm having this shame attack about this. And I just feel grateful to know that I'm having a shame attack, because when you're having the shame attacks, it really is like you're 5 years old. And then if you try to make any decisions from that 5-year-old place, you're going to immediately feel overwhelmed, because 5-year-olds can't make these big decisions, right? And so I think it was Bradshaw. He did a lot of work around shame and letting go of shame. So I think his work was really beautiful, because he kind of identified it. And then there was this identification of the inner child within. So I think that it's kind of just a fascinating thing that we do have these separate selves. And then when we meet them, sometimes it's kind of shocking, and often we meet them when we're having conversations with our loved ones and we're not acting very loving.
Exactly. And it's really important that you brought that up, Joan, and Rachel, when you're talking about this inner child, because the funny thing is, when you start doing this kind of therapy, you discover that the child and the adult are both seeking the same thing. So what they need to heal, what they need to integrate, is the same thing. It is the love, the acknowledgement, the acceptance, and those are things that, as children, we expect to receive from outside. But unfortunately, oftentimes we don't receive that from outside, because our own parents are going through their own personal development and finding themselves, right? And very few of us, when we start looking around the world, how many of us are the embodiment of this unconditional love? Very few of us are able to hold that in the world that we live in today. And so this is why we want to try to support that love in the moment that you're experiencing that trigger. So just in that moment where, like Kathleen was saying, take a step back, take a look, let me be loving towards myself and provide myself with the support that I need right now, so that I don't feel that I have to respond in that same way. And we have a really great comment here from Pilar that says, yes, it's so true. And not everyone wants to share much. They are guarded. I'm guarded too. But a wonderful thing happens when I delve in a little deeper. I truly feel for people and their pain, their insecurities and fear to be judged. And she said it right there. It's the insecurities and fear of being judged. That insecurity is the part of us that has been disconnected from the true core self. It's that disassociation, that fragmentation that occurred. So that's amazing. We do have a comment also from Vincent that says, I give myself a timeout in the heat of the moment. Nothing can be objectively processed. Right. And it's that incredible love that you have to give yourself. That time out is sometimes very important. And I think one of the great tools is that over time that becomes a part of your personality, that time out, because now you are more mindful and you're able to look at yourself from above, look at the situation from a bird's eye perspective, and immediately notice when those triggers are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
We have a comment from Larissa that says, yes, so excited to be here. Ola from NC, extremely proud parent, ushering an amazing spiritual child. Wow, that's amazing, Larissa. Thank you so much for your work in that. That's conscious parenting is so important right now. Very good. Let's go to the next main topic, which I would love to talk about forgiveness in this process of fragmentation, because one of the strongest emotions that emerges from this kind of triggering when it comes to empathy and compassion is that we begin to uncover a lot of little moments of trauma throughout our life. So how do we reintegrate from that? Right? When we begin to open those experiences, we begin to see ourselves in those moments and what we need from there, and that love that is necessary for us to feel healed, to feel complete, to feel whole. But there is a process in which we have to forgive the other for what has occurred or what we believe has been done to us, because a lot of us, we hold on to that as a part of our identity, and then becoming the identity of our patterns of behavior into our career relationships, into our intimate relationships, and in the relationship with ourselves, and the way that even we are dreaming or think that we can be. The whole personality becomes limited by those beliefs that were created at an early age. So how do we deconstruct that? How do we deconstruct that so that we can reprogram ourselves to understand that we are, complete and whole with those insecurities, with those doubts, and the parts of us that have been disconnected? I think that forgiveness is one of the key tools, not just the other, but to the self. It has to be a connection of forgiveness to the self, that we're forgiving ourselves for the parts of us that believed that we were unworthy, that we were not capable, that we were not lovable, that we were not enough. These are programs that have to be rewritten. How can we do that?
I have a very strong belief in journaling. I do the Artist Way pages. I do 3 pages a day, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But what happens is that it keeps me really in touch with what's going on internally. And sometimes when doing those pages, it can trigger, thoughts about the past too, and then writing about that. And somehow just doing 3 pages of stream of consciousness, it keeps you pretty clear after you've done it for a while. I've done it for 40 years. I think I've done some sort of journaling, and it's, Julia Cameron's Artist Way morning pages. I think she has kind of just a very clear set, and it's very open. So you do the just stream of consciousness, can be very easy. It doesn't have to be a fancy journal, just a little journal. And it keeps you clear. That's what I love about it. It's also, besides clearing yourself with a pendulum, I think it's a way to clear your mind of all the little things that are running around out there, So it's a way to take care of yourself in the present, but also explore what happened to you in the past too. I really love it.
I love that. And just to let everybody know, our next event coming at the beginning of next month is a workshop that Joan will be hosting for us called Writing. What is it again, Joan? Writing Therapy for the Soul, or something like this, right, Joan? What's the name? I'm sorry, I don't remember the name.
No, I don't remember the name either, but I took a class on memoir. And so I'm going to go through some of the tools that we use in memoir to write. But I really feel like memoir is another way of healing, because you can look at different parts of your life. And then as you put together a little book about your life, it's like everything suddenly makes sense about your life, even though in the moment, it certainly didn't make sense.
So great. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll give you the name later.
Sorry. Yes.
Memoir. Sorry.
Kathleen, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So talking about letting go, you just let go, all of us that are putting on classes all the time, you have to come up with these creative names, and the name is not really the purpose of it. It's the essence that is inside of the course that is important. Anyway, what I would like to share with everyone is we are going through a very unique time astrologically, and people have been talking about these big shifts that where we're all experiencing. And, you know, some people in the last 2 years, obviously because of what's happening globally, and I don't care if you're talking about health or economics or climate or, you know, war or whatever, it's a big like mess right now, right? So this is all in alignment with an astrological prediction that, you know, we've been talking about in my industry for a couple of years already, and we're still not through it. We're still going to be going through some stuff, but we are going through a very unique time right at this very moment, and it passes by humanity once 180 years. So in the Chinese system, because I follow the Chinese calendar, 5 elements, yin and yang, and all of that. So I've created this system called the Time Blazer, and within it, it's going to tell you about days that are vibrant to do certain things, and then there's other days that you should avoid. I want to let you know that if you're either listening live or you listen this to a replay tomorrow is a very good day to destroy old belief patterns. It's a very good day to take Joan's challenge on of getting out a journal and just really just letting it out. And but have the willingness to really, again, look at all of the bits and pieces we talked about along the way tonight. Where's our responsibility? Where's the child showing up? Where's the adult showing up? Where is the 2-year-old temper tantrum showing up? Like, look at those with honesty and be willing to let this go. Now, hopefully, Geraldine said that she's doing a meditation tonight, and hopefully that will be a part of letting go and really just understanding that we, and I will give a huge shout out to Geraldine, who helped me, you know, bring my conception to adulthood and updating those records, and you know, there's always more work to do. That's what you'll find out. The more you become aware, you have to let go, and it is important work, though, you guys. And the reason I'm telling you this, I'm so happy we're meeting tonight, is that you can actually start this process now. There's no better time to live your fullest life. And one of the things that is the uncomfortable part of it is letting go of the things that no longer serve you. And that could mean a number of things. It could be a thought process. You know, it could be the way that you were raised and you're choosing to take a different path. It could be a gender you know, differentiation in which you were born, and all of those things, that relationships, health, whatever the case may be that is holding you back of I can't, I'm not enough, all of those things. Just please be open to the fact that you can craft whatever you want, but you have to maybe let go of some things that are holding you back. Because if you want this and you know that this is holding you back, you've got to let go of this for this to come forward. So think of the Aikido method, like, oh, you got this nasty energy coming at you right now. Just let it go by you. Take that pause. Not as easy said than done. But then you just redirect the energy the best that you can. And one of the redirects we're talking about is taking a moment for yourself, self-care, of letting go of things that don't serve you anymore. And then here's my biggest piece of advice. You may only get so far on your own, but that's what this community is about. Ask your questions here live if you can be with us live, or even after the fact. We're more than happy to answer them later. Contact one of these individuals, and each and every person is here to help you. And, you know, maybe you need to speak with a spiritual person, you know, of your faith, or as Joan said, your friend, but sometimes you need professional assistance, and there's a group of professionals here to help you, as well as, you know, traditional as well. But that's another thing when we're talking about shame. I grew up in an era in the part of the country that you would only seek therapy if you were crazy. Well, you know what? These are kind of crazy times. So it's okay. And, you know, the more that you embrace yourself and don't worry about maybe some of the pushback that maybe your so-called friends or family, but maybe those are the people that you need to just, if not for forever, but just temporarily break away to get some healthy perspective of what's good for you. So
Absolutely right. So perfect. And Pilar says, I lost a lot of jobs and I worked in a lot of places because of this trickling from the inner child. So that's an incredible realization, Pilar. And the question is, how can we move forward and change that so it doesn't continue to happen? But just that awareness that that there's a pattern there that's reemerging is really powerful. So major props for that. Brad Marcus, thank you so much for joining. I'm striving to be more confident while trusting intuition. Yes, sir. This is a big one that we are working on right now. Precisely, as Kathleen was just saying, I mean, this is the moment where we need to come into some sort of surrender, some trust, and tune into that intuition that's coming in to help guide us discern what we need to let go and what needs to stay in our life that is for the best for us, that's more growing and productive for our well-being. Larissa says, how can I have more patience with self and the feeling of unworthiness, unlovable, when unable to do much for physical limitations? And I get so frustrated, very mad with the self, divided family dynamics, and the grieving that goes with it. All I see is how it affects him. And wow, yes, they are here to help us. But for me, it breaks me. Any advice? Absolutely. So let's start with that one. When we're talking about more patience of the self, feelings of unworthiness, and feeling unlovable. Does anyone want to start?
So I don't want to at all trivialize what you are going through because it sounds like a lot. And that's the first thing I would advise you to be aware of, that it's a lot. When you have health limitations, family dynamics, and the sense of unworthiness, it's a lot. And, I don't know if you've ever heard of this saying, you can only eat an elephant a bite at a time. And I hope that's not culturally revolting to anyone. It's just a way of saying that when you have something so big and it just seems overwhelming to you, that even goes beyond how I can fit my arms in the screen, it can be certainly very scary. And if you try to tackle them all at once, it's so overwhelming that you don't do anything. You just stop. You are just stopped in your tracks. So potentially, I would say, which one is the lowest hanging fruit? Like, it's almost as though if you could find the bottleneck of the one thing that would open, like you need to find almost these allies or something like that, right? So, what is the thing that could be the easiest thing? Because you asked specifically about being patient. So if you're not surrounded by some really good people, what are ways in which you could do that? And, it sounds like there might be some physical limitations to get out and connecting with people. So it would be a digital community of some sort potentially. But I would say that would be one of the first things that I'm hearing in your comments, is that you're completely overwhelmed and that you don't have a lot of patience for yourself. And so maybe if you could surround yourself with even just one person that you can trust, because, again, what was brought up earlier was the sense of being shamed, and that's just an awful feeling to be judged by somebody. So being careful who you reach out to, but potentially there might be some sort of community support group or spiritual group of some sort that you could. But I would tackle them one at a time, as best manageable. And I'm not discounting at all that all plans are going okay, and then something else hits the radar and it's like a triage thing that you have. I'm not discounting that at all. I know exactly what that means for that to happen. And trying to find like, what is my next best step versus collapsing in it all. And sometimes a trusty friend is maybe one of the best things that you can do. If nothing else, just to hear somebody on the other end of the line.
Mhm.
Yes, I'd love to address this topic of when we have self-doubt and a lack of self-love. I mean, what we need to understand about the process of loving the self is that we need to look at how we ended up here where we are right now. Okay, because there is many things that came into play in creating this profound belief that we are not lovable somehow. And it takes meditation, it takes connection to the self, and it takes review, self-review. So if you are on a journey of trying to understand how to love, you have to understand and you have to be pretty tired of what's happening around you. Okay. It has to come to a point where you have decided, I don't want to continue suffering. I don't want to continue repeating the same patterns that I'm repeating, and I'm ready to make a change. Because until you get to that point, we're going to continue supporting the things that are happening. And what we're not understanding is that what we're experiencing is a direct product of the way that we feel about ourselves. That's it. What's happening externally is a direct product of the way that you're feeling about yourself. So this is something that it's kind of an inversion of what we were told, right? We think, oh, we just go along with the things that are happening and we react and we're in constant survival all the time. But we have to stop that survival train because eventually it will crash. And then there will be a wake-up call. This is the law of accident, right? Of the higher self, that until you wake up with a big wake-up call, you're going to continue to do those same repetitive patterns. And they will happen. It'll happen either in your relationship, in your career, in your life, in your health. God forbid, these things are going to be presenting themselves. So after that wake-up call, we now take a step back and begin to review, what is my participation in the co-creation of the suffering that I'm experiencing? Okay. And when you start to review that, you begin to notice that, there's a lot of programming that went in since childhood, since your adulthood, since your past relationships, that the choices that we end up making in our life, including the friends that we're choosing, the family, the partner, perhaps if we are married into a family, all of these things are a direct product of how we were believing about ourselves when we made that choice. Okay. And sometimes that can be very difficult for us to accept and to look at, because now we have an entire life that we built around this self. It doesn't mean that there isn't a point that we can fix this. It doesn't mean that there isn't a point that we can change. A lot of people become intimidated by this realization, and they just want to, they give up. They say, oh, well, what can I do? And the thing is that this is the moment where we need to choose love for the self in such a way where we say, what do I need now in my patterns that I choose daily in order to stop this cycle of suffering? And when you begin to change the way that we feel about ourselves, it starts early in the morning. What are your habits? Are you waking up stressed out? Are you immediately thinking about all the horrible things that you're going to have to encounter with relationships, with things, with life, with everything? Is this how we are starting our day? Because that is setting vibrational frequency for what you're going to be experiencing the rest of the day. So just right there, we have to stop and we have to just hold ourselves and say, okay, Geraldine, you are loved, you are safe, you are complete, you are whole, you are love, you are lovable, and you are love. Basically, those three mantras, I spent years of my life saying those words to myself until I believed them, because in the beginning, you're not going to even believe them. For some people, it's difficult to even say those words to yourself. So you need to repeat it like a mantra until you understand what that means. And it's a complete deprogramming. It is a complete review of the way that you speak to yourself and to others, because that's an expression. A lot of times we're in defense mode. We're in protecting of this little self that hasn't even gotten the love from our own self. So we have to provide that love for ourselves, the nurturing, and we have to be our own best friend. My suggestion is to don't look outside anymore, because what we've created externally is a reflection of an old self that is continuing to cause suffering. So we need to take a moment and connect with the inside and become our own best friend first. Okay, be your own incredibly powerful support system. I need to eat right. I need to drink water. Start with the basics. Are you in the present moment? Are you in your body? Are you honoring the emotions that come up and saying, oh my God, I feel frustrated right now. Why? What do I need? What's happening? What's being triggered? And address it right then and there. This is self-love. And if you do some of this kind of work where you begin to look at this stuff, it's like every moment is an opportunity to remind yourself of how important you are. And all of us here, we've all gone through these processes of awakening, but when you realize how many things in the universe have come together to create the unique vibrational expression that you are, my God, you play such an important role in the collective. We need to remember that. We forget, because our eyes, our vision becomes myopic, and we forget to look at the bigger role that we play. So please remember, that this is really, really important, this little compassion and self. And we have a comment here from Fiorella. Fiorella says, compassion helps me understand the other side and allows me to come to a neutral point. Excellent. That's exactly right. What happens over time is that you come to that neutral point. Any comments, ladies?
Incredibly powerful, Geraldine. I'm just, wow. I love everything you said. And I love just to ask you one more time, what were the 3 questions that you recommend that or the 3 statements? I am love, I am safe.
What I used to say to myself is, I am loved, which means, because here's the thing, we are, we don't know this, but because our parents also were learning love themselves. Everyone's learning love. We need to remind ourselves, not everybody knows love. So we don't believe we are lovable, right? So we need to tell ourselves, I am loved. And we are loved because we are made of loved, and we are a fractal of the infinite consciousness of creation. And love is not romantic love. It's not emotion. It's creative life force. So we are loved because we are an expression of that love inherently. And we are lovable because everything about us is acceptable. We just need to accept what we are, acknowledge what we are, and work to embody. And whatever shadows we have or negative parts are just pain that hasn't been addressed and nurtured. So you are lovable. So even your shadows is lovable. And I am love. Again, that's the embodiment, that fractal of that infinite consciousness, which is that life force that you embody. You are that. So thank you so much for asking that question. Larissa says, oh, this old programs. Wow, I'm working so hard. It's pushed so many away. Scolding from the old programs. Yep. Oh, my Mary Magdalene. Yes. Yes. Very good. Beautiful, Larissa. And I commend you for the work that you're doing in embodying this. This is, the spiritual path, or the path, whatever, of self-development is not an easy path. People think it's just sunshine and rainbows, and it can be very hard. So good job. Any comments? Anything else you guys want to add?
I'd love to do the meditation now.
Oh, yes. Let's jump into this. Let me check if I have any more questions. And let's get started. We're going to start by inhaling deeply. Just taking a moment to connect with your body. Bringing yourself into your body. A lot of us are hovering outside of the body in order to not feel emotions, thoughts, maybe physical pains, aches, discomfort. So bring yourself fully in the body and stay for a moment still as you can, until your full connection reintegrates. We're going to start by just noticing any emotions that we have felt today. Feelings of unworthiness, feelings of shame, of guilt, of anger, of frustration. Go ahead and review your day and take a look at these emotions that have come up. Any aspects of yourself that were judging yourself today, take a look at that. Okay, I want you to notice from those emotions which one stands out the most. And as you feel that emotion in your body, I want you to identify where in the body you feel that emotion. Where is it living, this thought, this heaviness that you're carrying throughout your day that you have just identified in this stillness? Go ahead and focus on the part of the body that is holding this information. And I want you to sit with this uncomfortable emotion. In that discomfort, I want you to notice the emotions that are there. And just name them out to yourself. You can say it out loud or just in your mind. As you identified those secondary emotions, you'll notice that this is the belief that you are holding on to. So from those emotions, go ahead and select the strongest, which is the strongest that comes up in that discomfort. Notice if another part of your body is reacting. Focus on that second part now. Breathing deeply. Now that you have that emotion, I want you to recognize this emotion, this thought. It is a thought form. You're going to take yourself back to the very first time that you recognize yourself having that emotion. Take yourself back. You can go as far back as the womb. You can go back to your childhood. You can even go back to a past life. What comes up for you? Take yourself there. You might notice that it's a single event, or you might notice that it's something that you've dealt with your entire life in different ways. As you begin to observe that, just notice the influence that it has had over your personality, your expression, your choices. Go ahead and see all of those parts of you that felt hurt, traumatized, or in pain as a result of this emotion throughout your life. See those parts of you in front of you. You can select some from childhood, from a past life, or from more recent events. You might notice that it's an emotion that repeats itself, perhaps, throughout different stages. Take a look at your parts of you, your fragments. How do they look? Observe them. Notice where in their body they hold on to the tension, the resistance to feeling the discomfort of the experience. Breathing deeply. And as you observe these fragments of yourself, take a look at maybe what you would need in order to not feel this kind of discomfort. What would you need? What is the opposite of this feeling? Perhaps there is shame. What's the opposite of shame? Go ahead and identify what that is for you. As you see your fragments, go ahead and visualize that you will provide all of these fragments everything they need in order to no longer feel that discomfort, feel that pain, to change the program that was written through this traumatic experience as you enlighten them with something different. Breathing deeply. Notice how the tension in the body also releases as you begin to heal your fragments. In this moment, you are literally changing the expression of your genetic code. Watch your fragments merge into one in front of you. Allow yourself to eliminate any heavy emotions that are in your body now by breathing deeply, letting go. Acknowledging what are some things that no longer serve you, that you can let go of in your present day. Many times it's these emotions that cause ourselves suffering. Go ahead and see the fragment of yourself that has reintegrated, and you're going to surround them in a golden sphere of light. You're going to fill them with love. Watch that powerful ray of white light coming down from source and filling them with love in every aspect of themselves. And you're going to inhale and take that integrated part of you into yourself. As you inhale deeply, bring it into your body. As you now integrate a part of you that has shifted, that has changed, that has learned a new, different way of responding, of being. Taking a moment now to feel a profound sense of acknowledgement for yourself, forgiveness for all the parts of us that want to be in survival, that want to be in fear, that want to be angry, alone, separate. And just inviting them to embody something different. Perhaps love, perhaps compassion, perhaps the awareness that you are connected to all things. Breathing deeply. Letting go of any need to control yourself or anything outside of you. Bring yourself into a state of observation. The one that observes these memories, the one that observes the emotions, the one that observes this meditation here in this body. And as you take a deep breath, bring your awareness back into your body now. Surround your body in a golden sphere of light and fill yourself up with this love. Surround yourself with this love. Surround yourself with compassion. Grounding yourself in your body. And just take a moment to remember what this feels like, because you're going to pull this in to your day, to your night. As you begin to open your eyes and you come back into the room, just sit for a moment with your eyes open and just remember this feeling of being grounded and connected and surrounded by that love. Excellent work, everyone. Welcome back. Very good. I want to thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm so sorry this today's group went on quite longer. My goodness, it's 8 o'clock. Thank you, amazing healers that are here with me today, that are taking the time out of their day to do this. Really is a gift. To everyone that is here joining us, Larissa, Christopher, thank you so much for being here. We would love to support you in any way that we can. Please check us out at our websites. If you ladies would like to give out where people can connect with you, please do so, or any upcoming events.
Hello, everyone. It's Rachel here. Thank you, Geraldine, for that incredible meditation. And so powerful. Ooh, so powerful. Well, as you can see here under my screen here, and you can find me at rachelcooley.com. I also am here on Facebook with Higher Healing, and at my business page, Divine Guidance with Rachel Cooley. And I do one-on-one angel readings, angelic support sessions, healings, guidance from the angels. And I also have an Angel Sisterhood here on Facebook, and I'll pop the link below the video here, Angel Sisterhood for Divinely Thriving Women. How about you, Joan?
Yes, you can find me at joanrosestaffing.com, and that will lead to my phone number and my email. And I also do readings, healings. I work with I help people make business decisions, real estate decisions, personal decisions, and with the help of the pendulum and guidance from higher sources like angels and people's spirit guides, we get a lot of work done in a very short period of time and move forward in our life. That's my whole intention, that we all move forward to our highest self. Thank you.
And I am Kathleen Zemansky again. You can find me at 5elementsgroup.com. That's numeral 5elementsgroup.com. And I would say the best exciting things that I have going on right now is my book launch in November and my annual event in the beginning of January. And both of them are on the energies of the 2022 Water Tiger Leap into Action, because we have a very different energetics. I'm very excited about it, but finding the ins and outs to make sure that you come out on top, it's all in the book or at my event, and hope to see you there. So you can find tickets on my website there. Geraldine, back to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So many amazing things you ladies are doing. Thank you for your light and the work that you're doing in this world. And I want to thank you, light workers out there who are joining us today. Much love to you, and see you on our support group. Actually, let's define that really quickly right now. It is Thanksgiving. So let's do it the 20th, I believe. Is that right? I think we agreed on the 20th, which is the third Saturday this month. So thank you so much. Please join us then, and we look forward to seeing you there. Much love. Bye-bye.